There's a lot of noise around AI. Prompt this, automate that. But as a marketeer, if you're trying to build something real, not just generate some random output, you need to understand the basic building blocks of AI automation. And not from developer's lens, but from marketeer's point of view. That's what this video is about. So before we jump into building our own AI automation, end up buying some domains and tokens, let's look under the hood. What exactly goes inside these automations, and not from the technical point of view, but as a marketer, you need to understand whatever we need to do to make this happen. So in this video, I'll walk you through some of the key technical concepts that you need to understand before we get into making AI work for marketing. Things like what APIs are and why they matter, tokens, I keep talking about them, and how much they will cost you, and how do you find API keys inside platforms like OpenAI, Perplexity, Apify, Airtable, Google Cloud, or whatever you want to connect. And then a little bit on how you can improve on your prompts, the things that you need to keep in mind, and also how do you set some settings like temperature, top P, and context window, so that your output, your conversations with AI are very unique and exactly what you need from that, instead of them just hallucinating. You don't need to be a developer to follow this, but you do need to understand these concepts so that you can build better and smarter automation. Let's start with the APIs. If you have ever used a tool like ChatGPT or Gemini, you have probably seen the interface. You type something and you get a response. Now, behind that interface is something called an API. An API is how software talks to other softwares. You can think of it like a waiter in a restaurant. You look at the menu, that's the interface. You place an order. Now the waiter takes that order from you to the cook. You never interact with the cook or anyone in the kitchen. You just place that order, waiter takes care of everything and brings back the food that you order. So in our case, this kitchen is that OpenAI, the Airtable, or any other database or a language model that we are connecting with, the backend, everything that is happening at the back. And the waiter is the API. And what you get back in response, be it text or data or a scraped web page, whatever that you asked for, those are the things that get delivered using the APIs. Now let's talk about tokens. Every time you send a request to an AI model, it processes your input, but it breaks it down into tokens. So it does not mean that one word equals to one tokens. It's based on the complexity. So one word, which is a very complex word, can be broken down into a few thousand tokens. So that's why when you see things like, oh, you are getting 1 million tokens per day, you might end up consuming those million tokens in a few prompts, if the prompt is complex enough. So every time you send that request to an AI model, it processes your input and sends a response, but it doesn't measure those in words or character. It will measure them in tokens that you are using. So it's like a currency. It's like a currency for the AI environment. Each word that you write, each word the model sends back, it costs you more and more tokens. So the longer the prompts, the more complex the prompts are, the more detailed the outputs that you are getting, and the type of output as well. Text versus image versus video will have very different token consumption. So these tokens, they directly translate into cost. So we have to be like really careful when we are building these models, because some models are more expensive than the others. Some will cost you like say less than $1 for 1 million tokens, but another will cost you $200 for 1 million token. So you just need to be careful which model you use for any workflow, the AI agent workflow. So if you are planning to build AI workflows that run frequently, like say content generators, blog posts and all, because these are longer content forms, ad variation tools, because you might have say 10 ad variations per prompt or per input, or say data scrapers. If you are scraping a few hundred pages at one go, you need to be aware of how tokens are being consumed, because tokens, they are just not about pricing, they also impact how much information your workflow can handle at once. So we will come back to that section when we talk about context windows. That's another key topic in this video that we are doing today. But first, let's look at where to find these API keys that I mentioned earlier. Where do I find these waiters in those platforms so that we can start connecting them to our workflows? In most cases, you will find the API keys or the documentation to understand how to use those APIs pretty much in the same area as these three. So there could be hundreds and thousands of platforms where you would want to use those APIs. I'll give you an example of these three: OpenAI, Perplexity, and Apify, so that once we find those API keys and set up our own account with these three, I think you can follow the same process for most of the other platforms as well. So let's start with OpenAI. So with OpenAI, you do not start with, say, chatgpt.com. You have to go to OpenAI itself. So for example, OpenAI, I'll show you what to search for. OpenAI platform. Once you click on that OpenAI platform, you already have these options where you can create an API key, open AI playground and stuff like that. Let's do the walkthrough together. Right, so I already have my account here. You can just go ahead and create your account, and once you see this interface where you have all the models, quick starts and all, I will not be going through all these sections here right now. We will start with just the APIs for now, and later on we can explore other things, because these things are also important but a little bit more advanced than today what we are covering. So on the top right corner, right next to my name, the S from there, you see this settings icon. You click on the settings icon, and then you go down to API keys on the left pane. So you click on API keys, and that's where I already have one API key which is active right now. But to create another API key is very straightforward, very simple. You click on create new secret key. You'll have to name it something. Name is optional, and also you can call it anything that you want. So let's call it API testing. All right, so project, it's connected to my N8N, but for once you create your own project, whatever you are doing, it's a formality. It's like a folder that you have to create. You just click on create secret key. You click on it and then done. The thing is that these keys, they are very, very sensitive. You need to keep them very secure, because if anyone can access this key, and it's longer than this, so that's why I'm showing it to you, but I will not share my key with anyone, because if anyone has this key, they can start using the tokens that belong to you, which are in this account. So to prevent that, do not share this key with anyone. So you press on copy, and be careful about one thing with OpenAI. As you can see here, please save your secret key in a safe place, since you won't be able to view it again. So that's the thing. If you are going to use this key in multiple automations, then maybe make a backup of this one. Else, once you press done, this API testing, the key that we create, there is no way that you can get it again. See, you can change all the settings and all, but you cannot access this key anymore. Right, so this is how you get the OpenAI key. I'll just delete it because I don't need it. Revoke key, done. Now one thing you need to understand as well, because you also need to buy tokens, and that's something that we will cover later on into how tokens are used. But for this because we are already on OpenAI, so I'll just show you in anyhow. So you go to billing. In the billing, it will show you how much balance that you have. When you start, it will be 0. You need to add some balance, a few dollars here. I usually do like $5, and to be honest, it lasts me for quite some time. So you need to top up this part here in order to use those tokens. So this was OpenAI. Now similarly, if you have to find the key for, say, Perplexity, so you just go to Perplexity. There is no separate platform for Perplexity. That's a good thing, because in this case you can't access these keys from chatgpt.com. You have to come to platform.openai.com to access these settings. But when it comes to Perplexity, you just have to go to perplexity.ai. On the left side, the pane on the left side, you will see the account here. You click on the account, go to all settings. In all settings, you will find your APIs again in the left pane. API group, API members, API billing, and API keys. Again, for the billing part, you need to buy those tokens. So like, for example, I have $2.76 in my account right now. Minimum is $3 that you need to put in this account, and then the consumption is based on the how many requests that you are making, how many times you are using the API. So once you have added $3 into this account, you go to API keys. Now you can see that my API is visible here, that's why I have blurred it. But unlike OpenAI, you can copy paste the API key from Perplexity anytime that you want. If you have to delete it, you just delete it or copy it. But to create key as well, you just press on create key and it will just create another key. It doesn't ask you the name or anything like that. So it might be confusing that, because if you use multiple connections, if you use this API at multiple locations or platforms, you wouldn't know that where you're using these keys. So just be careful. I'll just delete this key which I just created. Delete. And I'll delete this one as well, because someone will probably steal it. Delete. So I'll create another key and put it in my automations later on. So those was the two platforms where you can fetch the API keys, OpenAI and Perplexity, because we will use them for our automations later on. And then finally, we also have to figure out something for Apify. Now, what is Apify? Apify is a platform where a community of developers, they create multiple APIs. Like for web scraping, you will find a tool for web scraping there. For social media, you will find a tool. And so you just go to, say, console.apify.com. Create your account first before you start with anything else. So you create your account, and this is the screen that you will see after that. These are all the actors or the APIs that I have used for different things in my workflows. So yeah, I'll explain Apify in details later on. Right now we are just trying to figure out all the keys and how to find those, so that you get familiar with how things work and how to find those API keys. So again, in this one, you go to your, I believe, settings. On the left side, you click on settings, and then you find these tabs: account, API integrations, organizations, blah blah, everything else. So you guessed right, you have to go to API and integrations. So once you click on API and integrations, again you will see all the tokens that I have created. I can delete them anytime, and just like Perplexity and unlike OpenAI, I have the capability to view my API key and also copy one even after I've closed the window. So that was a problem only with OpenAI, where you have to keep your keys safe, because once you close the window, you cannot see it again. So just like Perplexity and your OpenAI keys, you click on create a new token. Here they call it token actually instead of keys. You put a description that testing how to Apify key, right? something like this, or you just say 1 2 3 4, and then you can set an expiration date as well, which is a good thing actually, because if I would just want to use it for a couple of days or a week or so, I can just set that date. So I just press on create, and yes, testing 1 2 3 3 4, it's here now. So I can just start using this key here. When it comes to the billing with Apify, this is the only platform where you get free credits every month. So about $5 that you get every month for an 8 GB of RAM. And what does this mean? That this RAM will be used to process your request when you are doing web scraping or fetching content. Apify is mostly about web scraping, be it social media or anything. So the number of times you use it for scraping, it uses RAM. So 8 GB, that means it will be slower, but should be okay for some basic tasks. And yeah, for the usage part, you get $5 worth of free credit every month. If you need more than $5, you can always buy or upgrade to a higher tier of plans. So for me, you can see the limit resets on 15th of August, and till then I have $5 that I can use. I have a couple of other accounts which I use for my integrations, so that's why I don't use it too much, this particular account. This is more for like testing purposes and teaching, training and all those things. So yeah, this is how you get access to Apify, because you will need it for web scraping. And similarly, you can use the same method. You can go to the developer section, integration section of any platform that you want to find or create an API key for. And yeah, it's as simple as that. So we are done with OpenAI. We did it for Perplexity, and we did it for Apify. So now we know how to find those keys for APIs, and once we are clear about that, you can go and try it out. We will now move on to the tokens and the context and how to set the output temperatures and everything, so that you have the best output from any LLM after your prompting. Now that you have seen that how APIs work and also how to access the keys and get the keys out of those platforms so that you can start connecting them with your AI workflows, there is something which sounds very mundane, very basic, but it can make or break your AI workflow, which is prompting. And prompting can be as simple as, hey ChatGPT, give me an ad copy, right? That is also a prompt. But what will happen is that you will get a very generic basic response from ChatGPT as well, because there was nothing else. It's like, I'm asking you to write me an ad copy. So what we will do is we will try to figure out how can we write better prompts, how can we make it work for us, and how can we give it the instructions that enhances, that improves the output of any conversation with AI, with LLM 10 times or maybe 100 times better. So there are two types of prompts, right? And prompting is something, the prompt engineering that some people call it, is that we keep learning. And it's not like that anyone has mastered it, it's just that you can keep improving upon yourself. So for example, a very basic prompt could be something like, write a blog post about email, right? This is also a prompt, but will you get the output that we are looking for? No, because you will get something very, very generic. And I mean, there's a problem going on right now with AI slop, which is where everyone is talking about the same things. The output is the same because most people, unfortunately, they do not know how to do better prompting. And to do that, you have to give it better context, better background around what exactly do you need, what's happening. So let me give you an example of how to write a better prompt. And because once we and this could be used for your day-to-day conversations with ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity, and we will use the same thing when we start working on our AI automations. So what I will do is that whenever I start having a conversation with ChatGPT on ChatGPT platform, I usually start with, "Hey ChatGPT." You don't have to call it "Hey ChatGPT," you call it whatever, or just call it "Hey" or whatever. And then what you do is you give it a context. Context could be something as simple as, let's say, I own a, right? You can detail it out as much as you want, because you have to be as clear as possible when you give it a prompt. For this particular example, I'm keeping it short because I don't want to stretch the video by a lot, right? I own a growth marketing agency is the context, and I want to how to CEOs. No, I don't want to reach out to the CEOs. I will say I want to write blogs which are the CEOs of right? So this is the context that I have set now. After context, what we can also define is task. Now task is something that you are expecting ChatGPT to do, right? So you are telling it what exactly do you want it to do. Task: write a blog post on and AI. Could be as simple as that. Once you have given it a task that what exactly you want it to do, you can also set output rules. Output rules, you can list down a lot of output rules. For example, you can do it in bullet points as well. Make it at least 700 words. That's rule number 1. Don't use buzzwords. That is output rule number 2. And the way it goes through the rules is that it goes by the list. So the first rule that you set will always overrule the rules that follow, right? So be careful on what's the numbering of these rules that you're setting. Don't use buzzwords. Keep human and keep friendly and human tone, not human and friendly. I'll just stop here because the rules can be as long as, for some of the prompts that I created for my automations, these rules were like as long as 50 different bullet points. So it's up to you how you want to use those. Then after that, you can also create something like persona. What's the persona that you want ChatGPT or AI to take? Like, how do you want them to act like? So your persona is you are an intelligent social media content writer, right? So that we have given it, and then after that we can also give it examples. Now this one is very, very optional, but it helps. But if you have some ideas in mind, if you are getting some inspiration from somewhere, you can always give it those examples. Like if you want to create something which is similar to what HubSpot is writing about, then you can just copy paste the article or give it the link of that article. So give it 2-3 examples. I'm not giving it the whole example because it will take a lot of time, but yeah, just copy paste a few examples from it. Or if there is a certain way that you are writing your blogs, you can give it an example of those blogs as well, so that it can start those blogs, write those blogs exactly as your own personality, your own tone of voice. So do this very simple thing: set context, give it a task, set the output rules, give it a persona, and give it some examples, provide some examples that it can learn from. If you start writing your prompts like this, the output will be a few hundred times better, if not 1,000 times better, because it will not be generic, it will be as clear as your prompt is going to be. So be very detailed, give it very clear instructions, and see by yourself that how amazing your output will be, how much improvement you would have seen by doing this. So we just learned about how can we improve upon our prompts by giving it proper set of rules and the expectations, give it the proper roles and responsibilities and things like that, and your output will be enhanced by a few hundred folds, like I said. But there is one more thing which for some of you it might sound a bit more complicated, but try to understand that, because it will make your life much easier. Because you would have noticed that ChatGPT, when you talk to it, sometimes, if not all the time, it will keep giving you random information because it's trying to be super creative about things. It will not stick to the point and it will go all over the place. You can control this thing because this particular thing comes from the temperature, and it's not the temperature like your Celsius or Fahrenheit. It's a temperature that you can set for your OpenAI ChatGPT, and this is mostly applicable on OpenAI platforms. So there are two ways to do that. One is you can do it from your chat interface itself, and then one is where you can set it for your automations, your workflows. I'll tell you about both ways now. You already have created your own platform.openai account. If not, please go ahead and then come back and watch the remaining of this video. And for those who have already done that, let's go and do it now. So the first way of setting this temperature that I was talking about using your ChatGPT interface, ChatGPT, I mean chatgpt.com, is when you open any conversation and if you start, and even if it's an existing conversation, what you can do is, let me give you an example. For example, this one, right? We were setting all the rules. Also, now you can say set temperature to 0.25. Now what does it mean, setting temperature to 0.25? The variation of temperature in ChatGPT is from around 0 to 2, right? So if we have to think about it, we have 0 to 2. Oh, it was there, sorry. Let's set a bar here, right? Make it red. Let's call it 0.1. It's this one, 0.1, and this one is 2.0, right? Now how this differs is, let's also do, here it is. At this setting, your ChatGPT will be most logical. It will not give you any fluff. And here, it's most creative, right? So if you are around this area, in this one, somewhere here, then you will get almost robotic responses from ChatGPT, OpenAI. And if you are here, then it will be just all over the place because it will give you the most creative outputs. For me personally, because the bar here is usually by default it's here at 1, right? So the default temperatures for most conversations set by ChatGPT or OpenAI is at 1. Your sweet spot, at least for me, should be here, which is 0.7. This is 1.0, 0.7, because at 0.7 it will be creative enough, but it will stay a bit more logical. And if you're doing some sort of research and you're not brainstorming anything, I think your sweet spot will be somewhere here, which is 0.25. So if you are more into research, asking it very, very logical questions, and you want a logical response, try to set it at 0.25, just like this one, because you're writing a blog post, and if you already have an idea and you do not want it to fluff a lot into the output, you will set the temperature to 0.25. If you want it to be as creative as it is, usually by default you set it up as 1, leave it there, or you can increase it to 2 if you want it to just give you everything in the world there is, right? So that way your sweet spot, for a blog, I think it will not be 0.25, it will be more around 0.6 or 0.7. Yeah, this the sweet spot that we were talking about. Yeah, for a blog post it should be around 0.7. If it's a creative idea that you are brainstorming, you can leave it at 1. If you are thinking something around maths or doing some coding or programming, it should be around 0.25. So this is the way that you can set your temperature to when you're talking to ChatGPT using the interface itself. And the other way where you set these temperatures for the outputs and the randomness, this is called the randomness temperature, I think, because at 2.0 it's the most random, and at 0.1 or 0.2 it's the least random. The outputs will be least random. It will probably hallucinate less as well. I will not get into details, even I never researched that how exactly they do it at the back end, but I just want to give you an idea of how you can use it. So this was using the chatgpt.com interface. But if you go to say, why did I close this window? Okay. So if you go to say platform, you remember this one? We just did it for the keys. Yeah. So if you open the platform.openai and go to dashboard on the top right corner. Right, so you are here, you can have your conversations with ChatGPT using this dashboard as well. So it's not just for AI automations, it can also do these things like your regular conversations here. So here, if you go into say assistants, because it's like a custom GPT where you give it specific instructions, you give it a name, that what's the name of this assistant. Like for example, this one I created earlier, it's a growth assistant, which is more into growth marketing. If you go further down, once you're done selecting the models and everything, leave it at default for now. You saw the temperature here. You can see the temperature here, sorry. By default, it's set at 1. You can bring it down to say 0.25, which will make it less random and more logical, or you can increase it, bump it up to say 1.25, 1.4, something like that. So that was about how you set the output randomness of any conversation or any workflow using the temperature, be it in your ChatGPT interface or using the playground, because we may be using these assistants for our AI workflows. Because once you create an assistant, you can call this assistant into your AI workflows, your AI agentic workflows, and whatever instructions that you have given it here, it will just follow the same instructions for your workflows as well. So that was about the temperature, that how you can set it to get control over the output. But then I also mentioned top P. Now, as per the definition given by OpenAI, top P controls diversity via nucleus sampling. it's okay. So I'll try to explain it to you in very, very simple terms. So it ranges from say a 0 to 1. Now what happens is that it calculates probability. It's used to give you more reasonable or more creative responses. You don't have to use temperature and top P at the same time. If you just play around with temperature, it's absolutely fine. But what happens with top P is, like if you set it to 1, a good example would be if you are in a shopping mall or a superstore, and a superstore has a multiple aisles, a lot of aisles, hundreds and thousands of products in that. If you are setting the top P at 9 or 0.9, that means you are telling it that you can shop from 90% of the supermarket, go wild, just look around everywhere, right? So it might find something interesting, something very creative, and maybe still reasonable, but the output will not be very predictable. If you set it to say 0.3, the top P, then you're forcing it to pick from a very specific aisle. You came here to shop for detergent, for example. You only go to the aisle where they sell detergent, right? So it will not go wild, it will not be unpredictable. It will give you some detergents from that aisle and suggest that this is what you can buy. So this is the most basic example I could think of. But in terms of creative, yeah, they act very similarly, both of them, temperature and top P. You don't have to change both of them at the same time. And if you are just playing around with temperature, that should do most of the things that you are expecting it to do. So we went through how you can do better prompting in chat interfaces and also for your AI workflows, and then a little bit technical information on how you can set your temperatures or top P to get the output that you want, to limit the creativity and the randomness of the output. Now, one last thing before we close off for today is context window. So I just want to take a few seconds to explain why it's important in the context of AI marketing. So what's a context window or context windows that we use with any LLM? Think about it like this. There's two types of memories when you are talking to an LLM, right? One is long-term memory, like the memories ChatGPT will save of you, your conversations and everything. And then there's a short-term memory, right? So the context window is the amount of short-term memory an AI or the LLM can have. So for example, let's say we are in marketeers, so we work on briefs, and now someone is explaining to you a concept or a brief for the last 15 minutes, but you can only recall 5 minutes worth of memory. So you will not remember anything that happened before 5 minutes. It's as simple as that. So the thing is that when you are talking to LLMs, the AI or ChatGPT, for example, everything is AI. So people who wonder why AI hallucinates, especially ChatGPT or Gemini, when you are talking to the chat interface, context window could be the problem. And to avoid that, you need to be concise, keep it short, or change your model that you are talking to. So for example, if you are working on a code, right, and if you are sharing a big code base with ChatGPT to look for errors or bugs or anything, those lines of codes could be, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000, sometimes it could be 100,000 lines. If you are using a cheaper model, an older model, which can only hold 4,000 tokens worth of memory, and if you give it something which is like 500,000 lines, sorry, not 500, it will not remember everything and it will definitely hallucinate. So that's where you have to be careful in terms of what exactly do you do with the information that you provide to the model. So you need to keep in mind what's the context window of a model before you are picking it. In AI workflows, especially for marketeers, like you are talking about long research prompts, right? The context window that we are giving it and the the input that we are giving it. You remember we were talking about the rules and the output rules and the roles and the context and all those things. If it goes beyond the limit of the context window of that particular model, say you are working with 3.5 but your prompt is much longer than 4,000 tokens, it will probably forget the first few lines of your prompt. So yeah, that's why it's very important that you remember what's the context window. Nowadays there are more and more models come into play which has, say, context window of 1 million tokens. So that's where you can just play around a lot, but those models are very, very expensive. You would think that why some models are so expensive that they are like $200 for 1 million tokens. This is exactly why, because then they are capable of processing large data sets in a short amount of time, because you don't have to reiterate and go over things again and again. You can just give one single prompt, a really long prompt, and it will understand what you're talking about. So I hope that the context window is clear to you, because we are going to use all these things into our prompt engineering and the context engineering and picking the models and how we pick the prompts for any particular workflow and a lot of things. So all these things will come together when we start working into our AI automation, because we have to keep at least a few of them in mind. So I think we are almost done with today's session, today's video. So what we can do next is maybe a quick recap. So yeah, okay. So today we went through how to find those APIs and the keys within different platforms, and we understood why they matter, the tokens, what they are and how they cost you money, where to find API keys. I hope that was clear, but it was very straightforward. I gave you an example of OpenAI, Perplexity, and Apify. You can try this with other platforms as well. And I mean, some of these platforms would need a different type of integrations. We'll cover that later. For example, Google Cloud, it doesn't work on API keys, it's OAuth integrations. But yeah, we'll talk about it when we go there. And then we touched a little bit on the prompts, how they might be falling flat. We talked about giving it any conversation a proper context, tasks, setting output rules, giving it a persona, giving it examples so that it can provide an output that you expect from it instead of it just hallucinating. And then also, how do you set the temperature for any conversation so that either it gets super logical or super creative, or somewhere in the middle where it's logically creative. Yeah. And then we also went into the context windows, that why they are important and why sometimes your conversation with ChatGPT may result into hallucinations. I hope you are liking my videos till now, and again, like I said, I can only improve if I get constant feedback from you guys. So if there's anything that you're struggling or anything that I can do better, let me know in the comments so that I can work on it. Also, we are slowly moving towards building our own agentic automations for marketeers. So the next video in the series, I think we will cover a little on how to install AI agents and what are the basic criteria or the infrastructure that's needed to make that happen. If we have to buy a domain or DNS, how do we integrate the servers with our DNS? How can we start putting things together? And also, probably in the next video, we will cover all those, and also the first very basic step into building our first AI agent. So yeah, I think we are there now. In the next video, we can start building our AI agents. I will not get into very complex AI agents or the agentic workflows yet, but soon. And let me know if there's anything that you are not clear about. And also, I keep saying the same thing, if there's any recurring task or something that you keep doing on a repeated basis every day, which you hope that AI should automate for you, Let me know in the comments. We will work on it together. So yeah, see you in our next video. Cheers.